Hello everyone. So today our syndicate is talking about generic competitive strategy. We have taken the model by Michael Porter, which was introduced as a concept in 1980, and Bhavya will now explain to you on what the matrix is and what are the dimensions of Porter's generic competitive strategy.
Porter's generic strategies are ways of gaining competitive advantage, in other words, developing the edge that gets you the sale and takes it away from your competitors. Porter suggested that there are two dimensions which determine the course of a strategy. The first is scope of the strategy, which is divided into broad market and narrow market. The second is source of competitive advantage, which is again divided into low cost and differentiation. Differentiation strategy involves making your products or services different from and more attractive than those of your competitors. Coming up next, we have Porter's generic strategies matrix. In that, on the x axis, we have scope of the strategy divided into broad market and narrow market. And on the y axis, we have source of competitive advantage divided into low cost and differentiation. In the first quadrant, we have overall cost, which is cost leadership. It is a lowest cost provider. It is achieved by efficient and lean methods of production, and it has closer supplier relations, and it makes investment in new technology. Examples of this can be Amazon or Walmart. In the next quadrant, we have overall differentiation. Overall differentiation, doing something unique, different, or unpredicted to attract consumer and then encourage them to pay more. That is overall differentiation, and it is achieved by higher quality, better brand value, and wider distribution. Examples of this can be Apple and Mercedes.
Okay, so now we move on to our next quadrant, which talks about cost focused strategy. Essentially, what cost focused strategy is, it's similar to overall cost strategy, but within a narrow or a niche market. Basically, they're trying to provide their services, their products, or range of products at a lower cost, but targeted to a particular niche within the market. And further, cost focus is divided into two types of strategies: a low cost focus strategy or a high cost focus strategy. An example of a low cost focus strategy would be Diet Coke. The reason being that Coke decided to provide an alternative for diabetic patients so that they can also have the same experience of having Coke but without the sugar. And thereby they came up with this product and kept it at a low price. The second example of but this time of a high cost focus strategy, a company that comes to mind is Rolls-Royce, because their market is the elites and thereby their cost is high and they are targeting their products to them. Next, we move on to differentiation focus. Differentiation focus is also pretty similar to overall differentiation strategy, but also it is more focused towards a niche or a narrow market. An example of this can be the company Ducati, because Ducati primarily focuses on providing their products to motorbike enthusiasts. Thereby, they're not trying to diversify their product and they're sticking to what it is, and they're trying to sell their product to motorbike enthusiasts. Then we have another range of companies that incorporate what is called a hybrid strategy. Hybrid strategy is essentially incorporating both the elements, low cost and differentiation, into their business model. A company that comes to mind that incorporates it successfully is IKEA, because they have a great brand value, but also their products comparatively are placed at lower prices. Thereby, they are able to incorporate hybrid strategy very well into their business model. Then finally, we come to those companies who try to do the same as IKEA by incorporating a hybrid strategy, but unfortunately failed at it. A prime example of this can be Sony. The reason being that Sony, in the attempt of trying to differentiate themselves, weren't able to differentiate themselves enough, because their products were pretty much similar to other market leaders and they weren't necessarily anything quite different. Thereby, they weren't able to successfully create any differentiation between themselves and the competitors, and also their prices were accordingly never kept low. Thereby, they couldn't even incorporate a low cost strategy. That is where we come to the end of this presentation.